Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm going to be talking about a different chapter of selecting the right dog trainers. This is the second edition. I'm rewriting the book because I made too many generalizations that were not clarified in the first edition. So in this, I'm going to expand a little bit. And now we're talking about what type of dog trainers are there. So what type of dog trainers are there? Literally hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of dog trainers are getting their certifications every single year from various dog training schools in the US and really everywhere now. This includes on-site training like schools, dog training academies, online programs, and apprenticeships, as well as on-the-job training. So people are just becoming dog trainers all the time, which is not a bad thing. I'm not against it. But as a pet owner, this does change the way you handle things because you are a pet owner. At some point, you're going to need some training and you're going to have so many different options. And that's what this chapter is supposed to help you with. All these trainers getting pumped out there into the industry. The problem with that, many of these institutions and curriculums have very different views on dog training. So if I go to a dog training school and somebody I know goes to a different dog training school, and then somebody else I know takes an online course, and somebody else I know does an apprenticeship or on-the-job training. These are different channels to get information. Now, the online curriculum and the trainer doing the apprenticeship, these might have entirely different views on dog training. So school A and school B might have entirely different curriculums, entirely different views on dog training. So as the student, as the person learning how to train dogs, this also is affecting me. This means that the market is practically flooded with dog trainers, especially dog trainers that disagree all the time. This can be very confusing for you as the consumer, the pet owner. And maybe in some instances, it could be a good thing because now you have more options. I've been in this industry as of the redoing of the second edition of this book for 15 years now. Again, I can confidently tell you that views on dog training can be dramatically different, entirely different. It is insane. Even people that I know that I would categorize myself in the same category as them in terms of what kind of trainers there are, we just think vastly different about the process. A lot of it is an individual take on dog training as well, regardless of your education. As a former dog training instructor at a dog training school, I can tell you that we have produced vastly different trainers, even within the same curriculum, same school, same curriculum, same information. But then in that class, we would have trainers that had different personalities, and the way they applied the information was very different than somebody else in that same class. So like I said, it's a very individualized process. And as a pet owner, this gives you so many different options, which again can be a good thing, can also be very confusing. Now, for the sake of simplicity, let's break down the different types of dog trainers in simple categories. Adding to the second edition here, I want to remind you that these are generalizations. When I first wrote this, I made it too black and white. It might not even be a fair assessment of some of the things that I wrote. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to remind you throughout, and I'm also going to expand on certain parts of the book that there is more to it. There's more to it than what I wrote originally. So real quick, if you're liking this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you're listening to it on a podcast platform, make sure you share it with somebody. Give me a review on there and let me know how I'm doing, okay? So back to the categories. Purely positive trainers. This is one category. This trainer puts an emphasis on positive reinforcement, and they want to cause the least amount of stress in your dog. Training often involves a lot of treats, long training programs, and at times management options over training with stress for the sake of the dog. The main tools that this trainer will use will be no pull harnesses, head harnesses like Haltis or gentle leaders, get treat pouches, high value treats, and a clicker. This is a pretty darn good description of what the purely positive trainer is like. They don't want to touch your dog. They want to touch it the least. If they can get away with never, ever saying no, they won't say no. My personal belief on this category is not going to enter into this book because I'm just giving you information as the pet owner, okay? Or if you listen to this as a professional, I'm not I'm not casting my judgment on this. I'm just telling you what the category is like. If you're a dog trainer listening to this, you might feel a very strong way about this category, or you might just be indifferent to it. For the sake of sticking to the task, I'm not casting my judgment here, but this is generally the description. If you align with that as a pet owner, if you go, that really appeals to me, this is one category. When I said it typically involves a lot of treats, long training programs, and management options, that is also a pretty darn good description as well. Next category is the old school trainer or the pressure trainer. Okay, this type of trainer tends to be very direct, non-compromising, and at times confrontational. These are old school trainers, pressure trainers. Okay, granted, not every individual is exactly like this word for word, but it's been my experience that this has been the case. I have worked for old school trainers. I know how they are. I know how they handle business. I know how they talk to clients. I know how they train dogs. I've worked for some of these people, and I've trained with people that were like this. I've handled dogs, okay, not in the pet sense, but in the working dog sense, with people that were like this, very old school, right? Pressure training, and this is pretty much their attitude. This is how we're gonna do it. Period. The consultation often consists mainly of the trainer telling you what they're gonna do versus asking you a whole lot of details. There's something that I've noticed they're not really interested in. I've even heard some of them say, "I don't care what happened. This is just what we're gonna do. I don't care what started it. This is how we're gonna handle it." Okay, this trainer often emphasize force in mechanics. They're very technical. This is often their strength, so it's very mechanical in nature. Okay, I've seen a lot of these trainers using techniques that the average pet owner would just be like, I can't watch that. Some of these techniques were acceptable decades ago. Okay, there are publications, there are books that tell you how to train your dog that were written, and some of these publications lay out like word for word basically how to kick your dog's ass, right? How to smack your dog with a hose over the snout, how to pop them really hard when they pull in a certain direction, how to do all these things, lay out page by page by page. That is not an exaggeration, and it's not judgment on that either. These guys, this is what they did. They did what they could with what they had, and this was perfect. This was acceptable back then. It created results, it worked, and people just had a different view on dogs. Just things were different. But a lot of these trainers today subscribe to that still. Again, no judgment here, but this is typically how they operate. Some of the things that I have seen them do, that I've seen some of the people that I've worked for do, are just awful. Like I'll be like, I can't watch that. I can't do that. Right? Needless to say, it's not something that I stay with, something that I needed to separate myself from. But there are a lot of people that today still train like that. The thing about these trainers also is they're not going to label themselves pressure trainers. Nobody says that. Nobody says, I'm an old school trainer. I'm a pressure trainer. They're not typically saying that. So you have to sort of read between the lines and hear certain keywords that'll give you an idea of what category the person you're talking to is in. Okay, their training relies a lot on discipline and force. Remember, all of this is general description, but it's pretty damn good description. Now, I also want to clarify, just because I said these guys are using a lot of pressure and that some of the things that they do, the average pet owner could not probably watch, that doesn't mean that the other trainers in the other categories don't do that. Just because I'm describing the pressure trainers as using a lot of pressure it doesn't mean that they're the only ones that are doing that. Now, these trainers don't normally call themselves pressure trainers, old school trainers. They'll usually either call themselves balance trainers because it sounds better, or they prefer not to fit into any category. A lot of trainers actually don't even categorize themselves. They really don't. They just go, I train dogs. That's what I do. It's not going to be on their website. It's not going to be on their business card. It's not going to be in their pamphlets. It's just something that you're going to have to fish out of them a little bit as you talk to them. The next category is the balanced trainer. The balanced trainer is a nice compromise between the purely positive and the old school pressure trainer. This group of trainers is becoming more and more popular lately. This also makes it easy for very incompetent trainers to categorize themselves into this category, balanced trainers, because it just sounds better than I don't know what I'm doing. Right? I'm a balanced trainer sounds better than I'm gonna kick your dog's ass and I'm gonna give him some treats because I think that's what you're supposed to do. So a lot of times people will categorize themselves in this. The true balanced trainer wants to minimize stress in training, but is also very adamant about the importance of discipline. So I can tell you from a personal point of view that I like to use a lot of reward-based training. I want the dogs to be happy. I want the dogs to enjoy the training, but I'm not going to shy away from pressure. Okay, I'm not going to shy away from you have to do some of these things, and that is not a compromise. And sometimes we're not even asking. We're telling you this is what you need to do. So I want the dog to be nice and happy and enjoy the training process at all costs. But at the same time, we have to make that switch. And I want that dog to take the responsibility and go, these are the things that I need to do. And this is how I'm being held accountable for the things that I need to do. So that's normally the goal of the balance trainer, because it pulls you right in the middle. So you're not quite purely positive. You're not quite pressure. A lot of these balance trainers started in either camp and they merged their ways into the middle. Now in the middle, balance trainers, right? Middle, that's very black and white. It's not that black and white. There's a spectrum there. You could be a balance trainer leaning towards the purely positive side. You could also be a balance trainer leaning towards the pressure side. And there are a lot of people that are like that. They're balance trainers. They're using tugs. They're using toys. But they're also cranking and yanking very damn hard, right? They're also using some of those very old school techniques. And they're balance trainers that are never, ever going to use, some of these balance trainers will go, I'm never using an e-collar ever unless I absolutely have to one time. And then some balance trainers are like, I don't have a problem with using the e-collar. So there's a broad spectrum there, which is why this is a general category, and keeping in mind that it's not black and white. The tools that this dog trainer will use will range from the clicker to treats to electronic collars and everything in between. Then there is the I'm just a trainer trainer. The I'm just a trainer, if you ask them, okay, what kind of trainer are you? They're just going to tell you, I'm just a trainer. I just train the dog, right? I just train the dog in front of me. They'll say things like that, and they'll go, yeah, I just focus on what the dog needs. And they almost don't want to categorize themselves. And I get that. I understand that. But again, as a pet owner, you need to know. If somebody asks me, hey, Will, are you, as I'm talking to a prospect client and they go, are you a purely positive trainer? I'm going to tell them, no, I'm not purely positive. I'm going to straight up tell them I don't do that. And I'm going to say, well, I'm more on the balance trainer side. Right? And then I will describe what I do, which this is typically how my conversations go with prospect clients. So you shouldn't feel uncomfortable asking follow-up questions if they just give you this general statement like, I'm just a trainer. I just train the dog in front of me. Okay, what does that mean? Right? You can ask follow-up questions. And the book will kind of give you information on that as well. So when the trainer is doing the consultation and, they tell you, I'm just a trainer, right? I just train the dog in front of me. I just, and they're reluctant to answer your question. I just want to know, you're a pet owner. You don't know. A lot of times dog trainers, we're spoiled because we run the conversation. When you call me and you're asking me about your dog, I'm going to run the conversation. I have an idea of what I need to ask you. So I'm basically investigating, right? And the dog trainers are doing this. They're typically running the conversation. They're not coming to you to sit and you run this like an interview and the trainer's hoping that you hire them. It's not how it goes. Normally, we are the ones that are going to be drilling with the questions because we want to find out how to help you. And sometimes, as the pet owner, you might feel uncomfortable asking questions. You might feel uncomfortable pushing back a little bit, but you need not feel uncomfortable. If I have a prospect client that I'm talking to and we're possibly going to do business, and I feel like this person is not 100% on board, if there is some hesitation as we're talking, they're concerned, I don't want them to leave their dogs with me. I don't want to work with them because I don't want, and I'll tell them, look, if you're not comfortable, we don't have to do this. This is an option. I'm going to help you, but if you're not there, you don't have to do this. This is how I feel about it. If you don't want to do business with me, I don't want to convince you to do it with me because at the end of the day, you're not going to buy into it. So if you buy into it, if I'm able to convey what I do properly, then I can get you to go, okay, that makes total sense. But you as a pet owner should feel comfortable asking these questions. So the I'm just a trainer guy, right? You can ask them, okay, what tools do you normally use? That'll give you a hint as to what they do. They might go, oh, I never use this. I never use that. Right? You more on the purely positive side, you can ask them follow-up questions like that because it's your right. It is your pet. It's your animal. And there have been so many instances of people just downright abusing dogs. And it's because the pet owner just didn't feel comfortable asking these questions. Look, the trainer is not gracing you with their knowledge and with it's not like they're blessing you with their presence. You have every right to ask questions. Don't feel pressure because when you don't ask enough questions, when you're not comfortable, if there are concerns that have not been addressed, it puts you and it puts your dog in a bad position. We don't want to do that. So you can ask these guys, right? Are you more on the purely positive side? Do you do a lot of discipline? Do you focus on discipline? Do you combine? The answer should clarify you what category they're truly in because you're being reasonable. You're giving them basically multiple choice. If they still can't answer, proceed with caution. Any dog trainer should be able to summarize what approach they're using regularly. Okay, they should be able to tell you, this is normally what I do. If I'm talking to a professional and they're not being direct or not giving me clear answers, I'm not leaving them my dog. I'm not letting them anywhere near my dog unless I feel comfortable with them. It's important for you to know what types of trainers there are out there because you're not just talking about someone fixing your car. It's someone who's telling you they're knowledgeable, skilled, and responsible enough to take care of your pet. Okay, there are too many people calling themselves dog trainers that I wouldn't trust with any living thing, let alone one of my dogs. Okay, they're out there. You need to be able to see who they are and not put your pet in their care if it's not someone you 100% trust. Again, if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. If you're listening to this on the podcast, share with somebody you think might find it helpful, and give me a review. Let me know how I'm doing.